What we done started. Look at what we done started. This the people party.
Peace and love, party people, and the place to be is the BKMC, the MCEO, Talib Kweli. This is the world's best podcast, The People's Party. Always and as usual, I'm in the house with the world's best co-host, my friend, Jasmin Leigh. What up, Jasmin?
What up?
How you feeling? You look fresh for 88 with that jacket on.
My birthday year.
You look
87.
like an extra in a Salt and Pepper video.
A featured extra.
It's a good look.
Extra.
I used to like Salt and Pepper videos. Today's guest is someone who reminds me of myself in the fact that he is a rapper and an activist. And so I'm very excited about this conversation. He hails from the home of where hip-hop originated, the Boogie Down Bronx, a spokesperson for the culture. He talks about justice, hip-hop. He is where gangsta and wokeness collide at, a radical voice. On the movement side, this man has given speeches, led marches, organized protests. He is the co-founder of one of my favorite organizations, Until Freedom, along with Tamika Mallory, Angela Pinto, Linda Sarsour. And right now, he's headed down to Texas today to support Haitian refugees at the border.
Yes.
This man is also a very serious rapper with a very serious flow. He has burned up Funkmaster Flex freestyles. As a matter of fact, if you're unfamiliar with this man, when I finish, go and check out those Funkmaster Flex freestyles because they're very important. Yes. He followed up with My Soul Is Not For Sale. He had Gangsta But Woke As Fuck. This year, he dropped an album with our friend Trae The Truth. If you're scared, stay inside. A student, a teacher, an educator, founder of Universal Soldiers Entertainment. I'm talking about the Bang Bang Boogie Assassin, the Goon Squad General, the Hood Encyclopedia, the New York General.
Okay, Talib.
My son in the house. How you
What's
feeling?
happening, King?
How you
Welcome.
feeling, man? Good to see you.
It's an honor to be here, man.
No doubt. Last
Appreciate
time I saw you was on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial.
it. Yes, sir.
Last time I saw you before then, I think was in the basement of SOBs.
That's
for
right.
Lyricist Lounge event.
Yep.
So whenever I'm at some real shit, you're there.
I tried.
I appreciate it. You and I had the honor and pleasure of being on Remove 4-5 with Styles P and De La Soul and Chuck D.
Yes,
so
sir.
I love doing that record. You're from the Bronx.
Born and raised.
Tell us about being born and raised in the home of hip hop.
Oh man, it's a vibe, man. You know, growing up in the late '70s, early '80s. You know, I grew up in the mix of hip hop when it was first started. So it was jams in the parks. It was freestyle sessions. The guards would come build.
Yeah.
It was just so many different things, so many different elements. I remember my first album was the EPMD's album, Strictly Business.
Right.
You know, and I brought it home and I played it every day. You know, and I just knew it word for word. So just growing up in the video music box era.
Shout out to Ralph McDaniels.
You know,
Ralph.
Big Daddy Kane's first album. Like, I'm a student of hip hop, literally a student, man. So
No doubt.
it was just, especially being in the Bronx, you would see people and we had milk carts in the corners and we would just stand in ciphers and just freestyle, you know. So I come from the real essence of that.
Yeah, I seen you on the Flex with Fat Joe. Shout out to our brother Fat Joe.
Shout out to Fat Joe. Man.
Joey Crack. We had him on this show. And he talked about how he was running with the gods and how important the gods was in that era. And I didn't really understand that the gods were that important in the hip-hop scene back then.
Yeah.
You know, I know that the gods and the earths represent for hip-hop heavy, but I didn't, until Fat Joe said it, I'm like, you know, it don't get more hip-hop than a Puerto Rican nigga that grew up in the Bronx.
That's
You know
facts.
what I'm saying?
That's facts.
Your upbringing is pretty deep. Your parents both dealt with addiction. You've mentioned how your father was very abusive towards your mom. Your father OD'd when you were just 11, and suddenly you became the man of the house, taking care of your sister, your two brothers. But also in your raps, I noticed from being a fan of your raps that you say, Daddy taught me a lot. So can you take us through what you mean by that?
It was a duality, man. You know, my father was dealing with addiction, and he was also, you know, that I found out later that he dealt with mental health issues at the same time. So he was two different people. You know, he was one of the most intelligent people, most loving fathers, would always taught me how to box and taught me how to play sports and always instilled certain, you know, ethics of manhood. And he always taught me this is what a man should be doing. This is how you should take care of your sister. When I'm not here, you the man of the house. Make sure your mother and your sister are safe. So a lot of these values he instilled in me. And then there was the times when he would be drunk or high that I know now. First, I just thought they was drinking, and then later on, I started realizing, you know, he was addicted to drugs, and then he would come home and just be a different person. And that's when, you know, the fighting with him and my mother, and I was pretty much like the only person he would listen to at those times. Like, it was like watching him turn into somebody, and then he would look at me, and then it would just calm him for some reason. Like, I could take him outside and just talk to him. And this was at 10 and 11 years old.
Wow.
You know, like the only voice he would hear would be mine at the time. So, you know, we had a different type of bond, you know. So when he passed away, it was a lot. I felt like I was prepared, though, because I felt like he was preparing me. He always said, you got to be the man in this house, or you got to protect your mother and your father. You know, he would always teach me certain things and have me around certain things that I probably shouldn't even be privy to. Like, he would be arguing about to fight. I remember one day my father was about to fight a man outside, and he came upstairs to get me at 8 or 9. He wanted me to watch him fighting a man.
Wow.
And he was trying to teach me how to fight while he was literally having a real fight with this man.
Wow.
He was talking to me while he was, whatever he was doing, he was explaining it to me. And it was just really weird. And a lot of people thought my father was crazy, but they knew that he wasn't at the same time. So he was loved and feared at the same time. He was a very different type of individual, you know what I'm saying? But he was someone that's taught me a lot. I learned a lot of, especially about loyalty and honor from him.
Your mother had you when she was 16. Let's break down the stigma of teenage mothers, single Black mothers, and the fact that you had to grow up and fight drug dealers who kept her hooked on dope. And did you feel like you were literally battling to keep her alive?
I did, you know, growing up in the crack era, like, I literally watched the crack era develop. You know, I remember being in the 4th and 5th grade and 6th grade, and one of my friends showing me a crack vine. I was like, what is that, soap? You know, and he's like, yo, this is how people we're gonna get rich off of this. And one of my closest friends became like the biggest drug dealer on the block. So it was, everybody started selling drugs at that time, and I was trying to stay away from all that. Young, I was in sports, I was into different things, and I didn't want to get involved in that. And the reason why I didn't, because I watched the effect that it had
On your parents?
not just on my parents, on other people's parents. I watched people who was going to work every day, good parents, and, you know, just turn into somebody else. Like, I watched them completely turn into some, like, zombies. I watched our whole community just turn into zombies. So, you know, I felt like when I seen it happening to my mother, you know, like you said, I had to fight I was literally fighting for her life. I was fighting to protect her. I was fighting, you know, because it was times we was on welfare. So they was coming for food stamps. She had already sold the food stamps, you know. So by the time the check came, they was coming to get the food stamps. And I was like, so how me and my sister supposed to eat?
Right.
And then at the end of the day, but I can't, y'all not gonna do nothing to my mother. Like, I don't care how young, like, whatever I gotta do, I'm going to protect my mother. So it was that duality. When my father was gone, that was my job. My job, I became a man at about 12 and 13 years old. So I had to take on a higher level of responsibility. I had a mother and I had a sister, you know, and then later on I had 2 younger brothers. So I was the oldest child,
Your role model.
the oldest man. You know, I was their role models. A lot of times my mother wasn't even there. She would be gone for 2 and 3 days, and I had to figure out how we was going to survive. So, you know, I grew up way faster than I should have.
Yeah. That short story is not unique to so many people. You said that just now that you learned loyalty from your pops. You got a song called Loyalty. I got the lyrics in front of me. You say, these are my favorite lyrics from you. You say, I wish I knew then all the shit I know now. Like how these niggas sold out the culture for $1. The dealer doing life was supposed to be a scholar. Like how Malcolm X was supposed to be Obama, and how they tricked our brothers to selling drugs to their mamas. That lyric's very personal to you. Even though you fought drug dealers who sold to your mom, you ended up dealing yourself as a means to an end. You said in the past that you saw everyone else in the neighborhood struggling except for the ones who sold drugs. You've said, I wasn't chasing riches, I was trying to survive. Can you take us through that?
You know, it was after I graduated high school, you know, and I was trying to figure out how I was going to survive. Like, that was the first time I ever sold a drug was when I graduated high school. And I didn't have no money, you know, my mother wasn't, she was still in the streets running around. And I was trying to figure out, trying to get jobs. Nobody was hiring. Somebody fresh out of high school, and I wanted to go to college, but I didn't have the means or the money. So it was just I was just caught up in so many different things, and and that was the first time that I said, you know what, I'm gonna do this. And I remember going out of town and driving out of town with a half a kilo of cocaine in the car and going to a block and selling it in less than 3 hours and seeing $1,000, and you're like, wow. You know what I'm saying? And that's when I started to get into that life. So it was so, and I never wanted to, and I remember being out of town one day, and this lady came to me, and it was like God was talking to me. So I'm hustling on the block, and the lady walks up to me. She's a fiend. She was looking for me to sell something to. So I go to the back of the house, and she just looks at me and like, "What are you doing here?" What are you talking about? I'm a street. What the fuck you mean? What am I doing here? You want something or not? She's like, no, what are you doing here? You don't belong here. I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, get off this block. This is not for you. She said, this is not you. Like she looked me in my eyes
like an angel.
Like an angel. Like I don't know what it was, but I never went back after that. Never. And a lot of people got caught up on that block. Dudes is doing 50, 100 years. One of my friends got killed in that same town. It was so many different things, So I felt like God always had his hands on me and always guided me. My spirit was always, the nature of me was always good. Even when I was doing bad, my nature was never bad. I never wanted to do. I always felt like this was something I was forced into. I had to do. I always was looking for a different means. Even when I was really in the streets, I was always looking for a different means.
Now, you were very young at this time. When I was 19, 20, an experience that I had all the time growing up in New York City, you get to a certain age where you're like, fuck that, I ain't taking the bus. I ain't taking the train. I got enough money for a little cab. I'm going to hop in a little gypsy cab or whatever, especially you in the Bronx, I'm in Brooklyn. So I had a lot of experiences with being young and brash and volatile myself, where I would get into arguments with taxi drivers all the time.
All the time.
It was a daily occurrence. That was just a tax that came with taking taxis. We gonna haggle over the price. For you, that turned into something that ended up in violence, ended up where you had to go to jail. And then, according to your story, because you got into this altercation with this cab driver, you now get profiled by the police as someone who is robbing cab drivers.
Exactly.
So you got falsely accused of robbing somebody else. You said that you became cool with the cab driver that you had the initial altercation with. And with the second time when you were falsely accused, you said that you regret not doing everything in your power to fight for your innocence. You said your lawyer said it's easier sometimes to defend guilty people. And it makes me think of your partner, Tamika Mallory's quote, your partner in this struggle, it's harder to be innocent and black than it is to be guilty and white. Can you take us a little bit through that situation with those cab drivers?
Well, pretty much, I was literally had just started to go to college, and I was going to John Jay College, studying criminal justice, ironically.
Right.
My son's mother was pregnant at the time, and she called me. I just came home, and she called me. She was working in the movie theater. We had a movie theater on 161st Street, from the Bronx, and it was raining. She called me to pick her up. So me and the cab driver comes to the block. I call a cab, go to the cab base. I'm standing out there in the rain waiting to go pick her up. She's pregnant. He sees me, and he just drives off. Like, they never wanted to take the young black dude. They was like, oh, he gonna probably hop out and steal or whatever.
Right.
But I'm like, why would you not, So I called him, but he like, I don't know what happened. He don't want to take you, I guess. He drove around, came back, and parked right there. So I'm like, yo, he said, no, I'm not taking nobody. I'm not, and drove off again. So ironically, the same cab driver picks me up. It's New Year's night. I'm in my grandmother's house. I'm with my baby mother again. She's still pregnant, but it's probably like a month later. Can't get no cabs. We calling the cab, same cab base, because that's the cab base I know. We call the same base.
Yeah, in New York, in Brooklyn, we had Evelyn. I knew the number by heart. I knew certain drivers, which drivers I wanted to fuck with. Yeah,
exactly.
The whole system.
I just called the base, same base. You'll send a cab. So the same cab driver comes to pick me up. So how ironic is this? So I get in the cab. So I'm looking, I'm like, yo, you the same cab driver that wouldn't pick me up. So we get into like a little debate. I'm like, yo, it's messed up, man. My girl is pregnant. I was trying to go see her, so I'm talking to him. He's like, yeah, what? He just ignoring me. So we get to the place. We get to her house where we was going. So cab is always $10. So he tells me it's $20 because it's New Year's. So I'm like, what do you mean it's $20 because it's New Year's? Like, well, who made these rules? I'm not giving you no $20. I gave the man $10 and got out the cab. Mm-hmm. He came out with a bat. Baby mother gets out the car. He comes out the bat and literally swings the bat. So I weave the bat. He barely missed me. So I turn around and run. I'm so not paying attention. I run into the curb and I hit my foot like, boom, like ran straight into the curb. I end up doing like a front flip. He stops chasing me. I hop into the building. Next thing you know, I broke my toe. I'm on crutches for like a month and a half. So I don't see the cab driver, nothing. So long story short, we on the block. He comes back because the cab base is right on the block where I live at. So he comes back to the block while we rolling CeeLo. We outside. Now, you know, I'm on break from school. I just got my little tap and pay check. You know, everybody wait for their little tap and pay check. In New York, I got a couple $1,000. We out there.
Is that financial aid?
Yeah, financial aid. Yeah, it was tap and pay back then. That's what it was called.
Fault.
I'm a little, you know. So anyway, we get our little check. I'm out there gambling. I went to the liquor store, you know, about to get something to drink. Me and my friends, we out there gambling. He pulls up right to the gambling spot. So he wants to buy, one of my friends is selling weed. He goes to buy weed from one of my friends.
So the cab driver was coming to buy weed?
Same cab driver. So I look, I'm like, yeah, but that's the same cab driver that chased me with the bat. Mm-hmm. So I tell my baby mother, I'm like, is that the guy? She's like, yeah. So I don't say nothing. I'm like, yo, just get his cab number because I don't want to know the number. I'm like, well, I'm going to call him one day. I'm going to beat the shit out of him one day for what he did to my foot. But right now, I'm not even focused on that. Mm-hmm. So I'm still gambling. I turn around. Dudes I know, my friends, got him surrounded. Like, yo, you chased my man with a bat? And he's like, what are you talking about? He's stuttering. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're talking about. So I walk over this side, you know, I'm like, yeah, you remember you chased me with the bat. So we get into a conversation. One of my friends hit him. Oh. So he hits him. He grabs onto me. We scuffling, like he's grabbing onto me because he punches him into me. So by then, we get into like a fight. I hit him. He falls. I'm nervous as hell. He just falls down. I run off the block. I'm like 18. We laughing. We running off. I just see him fall. I run, boom, 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 thinking nothing of it. Days later, I'm driving. I'm on my block on a bike, and I ride the bike. The cab driver pulls up in front of my building. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, what's up? We gonna fight again? Like, I'm thinking we got a beef. Like, I'm not robbery. Like, that wasn't even nothing as because I didn't rob him. I didn't take nothing from him. So I drive down, he drives off. I drive on my bike. He comes with the police. So when police come, I'm like, yeah, he tried to hit me with a bike. He tried to hit me with a bat. They're like, nah, you being arrested for robbery. I'm like, for robbery? The fuck you talking about? He said that I pulled out a bottle. I hit him with a bottle.
Oh my God.
One of the people, like, I had a bottle. Somebody else had a knife. We said, give me your money. I hit him in the head with the bottle. He was unconscious. We took his money and ran. So this is what his story was, you know, and went to court so I constantly running into the same cab driver. Right. You see, I'm constantly, so another day, same cab driver's at the base. I go to the base because that's where I call my cabs at. So I see him. So I'm like, yo, we get into a conversation. And he's like, yo, you know, I said, but why would you tell somebody that I robbed you? He said, I know you didn't rob me, but he said somebody took my wallet. So I don't know that. You know, I ran off. We got into a little scuffle. I just see you fall. I run and get out of the Dodge. You know, so he said, somebody took my wallet. You know, and this and that. And I'm like, bro, I never took your wallet. But nobody never had a weapon. Why would you say that somebody hit you with a bottle? Somebody had a knife? Like, where did all of this come from? Mm-hmm. He completely made up the story. So he's like, you know, you're right. I'm going to go tell the truth when I go to the courthouse. So he goes to try to tell the truth. They tell him that he's in contempt of court. That they're going to arrest him. That he can't change his story now. And they lock him up.
Wow.
Put the man in, literally put him in jail that day. I went because he came to my hearing. When I told him, like, I'm having a hearing on this day. I need you to come to tell the people the truth. So he went there. The DA was trying to scare him, like, no, they was coming to his store. He had a little African shop. They was coming to his store telling him, yo, the guy's looking for you. They let him out of jail. He's gonna do this to you. They trying to tell him that I'm gonna do something to him. And he's like, he knows better because we in communication.
Right, it's a community.
It's a community, exactly. And we've already, so he like, I'm gonna come to your hearing and I'm gonna tell them what really happened. So I'm like, all right, cool. So when I get there, he comes through the door and the DA's telling him, yo, you can't tell him that. So he's like, I don't want to go through with the charges no more. I don't want to go through. And the DA is telling him that I threatened him and that's why he doesn't want to do it. He said, I don't want nothing to do with the charge. I just don't want to do it. And they said, you can't do that. You in contempt of court. You already got a statement. They lock him up overnight. At that point, he's scared to death. He comes out, he's like, yo, I don't know what to do. They threaten my family. They said they're going to take my store. They know, I think he was probably here illegally kind of or something. So they threaten him with everything possible. He comes to court, and even in the courtroom, he was saying, like, I don't remember. I don't, because that's the only thing he could do. And they somehow he said, did you see the guy? He said, yeah, I saw him, and that's it. That was enough for them to convict me of robbing this man. I never robbed this man a day in my life. And then they had another guy that they just picked me out of a lineup because they said he was a cab driver. So obviously I just run around robbing every cab driver in the world. MO. So that's my MO. So they tried me at one trial for both of these two cases at one time. So if you're a jury and you just see two people and they say he robbed him and this man is adamant. I never seen him a day in my life. They have no evidence, nothing, anything but him just saying it was me.
And this became 7 years.
It turned into 7 to 14 years. I went to trial because, I took it to trial, got found guilty. They sentenced me to 7 to 14 years.
Wow.
It's a really sad story because it's the supremacists that made this all a thing anyway, because it's them that's putting into people's mind that black men are dangerous. Black men are dangerous. So when he drove down there and saw a black man, he's thinking, okay, black men are dangerous, even though he's another black man. And they don't lock up white women that claim rape and then go back and say, oh, I lied. They're not locking them up.
Yeah. That contempt of court thing is all of it.
Bullshit.
All of it is control.
It is.
You rap a lot and speak a lot and talk a lot and have become known as someone who enforces the code. And you speak about not snitching. You talk about the rules of street codes and how they apply differently to civilians. Tef Poe, who we spoke about in our interview with Tamika Mallory, who's a good friend of ours, says that when he speaks to young people nowadays, young marginalized people in the hoods, where he goes around to speak, that he's hearing people say they want to snitch because it's like, that proves to the world I don't give a fuck about nobody. In what cases, in your opinion, should someone help the police, or should someone ever help the police? Because we've seen rappers divided on this matter when it comes to certain ghastly murders to happen.
I think for me, right, and a lot of people say that it's hypocritical and it's contradictory to being an activist and upholding street codes. And it's not so much street codes, it's man codes. It's levels of integrity, it's accountability, it's being able to stand on whatever it is that I said I was going to do, the consequences that come with those actions, being able to take those, right? As a man, I should not be so scared to take the accountability for my actions that I'm willing to tell on you so you can take the accountability for yours.
Right.
That's just not manhood for me. So it's not about street codes or not telling, right? When I was in the street, my main goal was to run away from the police. I ran away. There's probably times that the police caught somebody else or grabbed somebody for something I did. And they was held accountable for something. That happens when you in the streets. Those are what you sign. It's like you go into a boxing ring, right? And you boxing and you get knocked out conscious. You can't go to the police because you signed up to be a boxer.
For those rules.
Those are the rules. Like whatever happens, you go in MMA. If you lose an eye, you can't press charges because you signed up for that. So the streets is the same thing. So it's not about criminality. It's about integrity. It's about being willing to stand what it is that you do. So for me, I think that's why I'm so adamant about it. When I went to jail, right, and like I explained to you, it was a bunch of people, other people there with me. And the main thing they wanted me to do was say, who was with you? I had a record deal. At that time, Lighty had just signed me when I was doing all these things. And as a man, I said, you know what? I was in the streets. I got signed to be in the street dude. The lyrics I was talking about was Mike Son Lefty Gunner. Like this is what I was talking. This is what I abided by.
Right.
So I can't change that now because the circumstances are not in my favor.
Right.
You know, so as a man, I have to deal with the consequences of these actions, right? Of actions that I didn't get caught for. It's shit that I did in the streets that I didn't get caught for. Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
That I probably would do 50 years if they would have caught me for. So I understand that and I dealt with that. So I think that's what it is for me. It's like I had opportunities. I risked everything that I had based on integrity. So you can't put people on a level or the stature of what it is that I represent that haven't been tested or when they was tested they folded. So I think that's why it's adamant for me. So the question you asked, when is the time to do it? If you're in the streets, you don't protect anybody who rapes somebody. You don't protect anybody that does crime to innocent people. You don't protect people who do things to women. You understand what I'm saying? Those are the codes, the man codes. At that point, you don't even have to. The streets supposed to bring them. They supposed to want to test to turn themselves in. That's what we supposed to do as men. Like, oh no, you gotta go turn yourself in, or we're gonna bring you to the cop.
Right.
There's no code against anybody that violates women and children. That right there is completely off the table. So when people say, "Oh, I'm not," nah, bro, we don't hold you to no standard. We don't give you no credibility. There's no code that protects a pedophile or a rapist or someone that's doing harm to kids and women. There's no code that ever protects that.
That's right.
So I that's one thing I stand by. And like you said, when you're not in the streets, people saying, you're not supposed to tell. You're not in the streets. If you pay your taxes every day, and it's because
you're paying into that system.
You're paying into that system, and you need the police to protect you. So it's really simple. It's very simple. People just want to make it difficult. And I say a lot of
you got
times,
people playing tough guy, especially within the hip hop space, who'll be like, I don't snitch and this and that and this and that, but you still dealing with the police in your everyday interactions.
Exactly. And for me, it's like this. If more kids, and I tell people, they say, oh, you protecting the criminals when you say don't snitch, it's like you trying to get them away. And I want you to understand, if more of these criminals, quote unquote, and kids knew the consequences of crime, the consequences of the street, and they had to actually deal with those consequences, you would see a lot less people want to engage in street activity.
Yeah.
See, when you give them a back door, when I can sit there and I can sell all the drugs, I can get all the beef, I can shoot whoever I want to, and then I could go tell on somebody and don't be held accountable, and then come right back to the street and be accepted and do the same shit again. I ain't saved nobody. You didn't stop anything. You made some little kid say, yo, I could do that. I could get all this money and I get all this fame and just do 6 months after and tell on somebody else so they could do 20 and 30 and come home. Why not be in the streets?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So it's a false narrative, and it actually invites somebody who is not really built for that. I tell people anytime, if that's what you could do, if you're willing to deal with the consequences of it, I can't.
Right.
I'm not trying to do 30 or 40 years. I'm not built for 30 or 40 years. That's why I'm not going to do nothing that's going to get me 30 or 40 years.
Amen.
But if that's what you're going to do, then make sure that you're ready to do them 30 or 40 years.
Right.
And that's how you build integrity. That's what we teach our kids every day is to man up.
We also tell kids, don't tattle.
Well, but
That's-
that also teaches
that's
loyalty.
integrity.
Yeah, it's loyalty.
Okay, so I did time myself. It did about 16 hours in the holding
Hard
cell.
time. Hard time.
It was hard times. They fed me Thanksgiving dinner, and that's when I broke down. For your experience, you were a rapper in jail. What is your unique experience from that? And was it hard seeing people that you knew personally become successful while you were locked up?
It was hard. It was really hard watching 50 Cent, just knowing that I was just with 50 Cent, and when you look at the trajectory of our careers, I was slated ahead of him. You know what I'm saying? Watching, all of these different, watching Sean drop his album, and me and Sean were just in the studio, like knowing that I was supposed to drop my album before most of these people that was dropping, and just watching careers take off, watching Fabulous take off, knowing that Fab, the first time I heard Fab, I brought him, he was supposed to be on a song with me, and Clue was like, yo, this is my new artist. You know what I'm saying? So just literally watching all of these artists just continue and knowing where I was supposed to be, it was tough.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It was tough literally watching artists just continue watching Ja Rule's album drop and seeing him sell 10, and we was both signed at the same exact time, and you know what I'm saying, and we had both our labels, we were both on Def Jam, and Chris was telling Leo, I bet you my song gonna sell more than Ja Rule, and we had this competition in Def Jam, knowing that, and it was good competition, you know, and watching everybody just take off and do what they was doing was a lot. It was hard. 7 years just sitting there, you know, but you know, I say to myself, every minute in jail that you don't learn, that you don't grow mentally, physically, emotionally, the system wins. So, you know, I had to utilize it as fuel. I had to utilize it, and I just continued to grow, you know, just educate myself. I wrote music, you know, because that was the form of escape, you know. So I wrote a bunch of music. I read a bunch of books, did a bunch of exercises, you know. So I said, I have to come home mentally, physically, emotionally, skill everything better than I did when I went in, you know. And that was my mindset. And I guess that's what pretty much catapulted me and kept me strong enough to do that bid.
Yeah, man.
And was your son, he had just been born, or was he like?
He was 1 year old.
Rest in peace to Chris Lighty.
R.I.P. to Chris, man.
You were on that Violator compilation with Mason 8 Ball. How did you get linked up with Violator? We talk about Chris Lighty on the show a lot.
Yes.
Well, Chris literally came and got me, man. Shout out to my
Wow, Fat Joe told us the same story.
He came, he got me because my man Tone, who was my manager then, it's like my big brother, had brought me to Def Jam. He brought me to Def Jam. So we walked in Def Jam, and I went to everybody's office. You know, and first I went to Chris' office, and I remember when I went to Chris' office and Q-Tip was in there. When I first got there, Tip was in there, and I was rapping to Chris, and he just was like, "This kid is the truth." Like literally. He literally said, "This kid's the truth" from the first time he heard me. And then, you know, it was this legendary battle me and Sean had at Justin's, and it was a whole bit. But Chris was coming to my house. I was living in the project. My girl was living in the projects in the Bronx, and he literally would come to the Bronx and pick me up every day in his Range Rover. He'd pull up to the projects in his Range Rover and take me driving and be like, "Listen, we need you on this label. Like, I need you, you know, I'm starting Violator. It's gonna be the record label now. We moving from management. You know, only person we had, the only people he had signed on the label at that time was Foxy and Cormega. So Foxy was about to drop her second album. Cormega was still working on his album, and he's like, "We want you to just take the level to the next level." You know what I'm saying? So. And it was between him and Rough Riders, and Rough Riders was like my family.
You was on that Rough Riders compilation,
you know what I'm
too.
saying? That was my family.
Posse cut.
Yeah, so they came to me too. They was like, "Yo, we want you," but it was ego at that point because X and Lox was Rough Riders,
right?
You know what I'm saying? I'm like, I don't want to go to be underneath X. I don't want to I feel like I have my own team. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, I feel like I can carry my own. And it felt like that's what Chris wanted me to do. He's like, "I think you have that ability, man." And I had my other artists. He loved my friends and my artists. You know, we had a whole thing. I was the problem child. I had my team was the problem children. We had a whole strategy that we was gonna market, and you know, he pretty much.
I remember that era. I remember the vibe, because I was just now breaking into the industry at that time, and the vibe was my son next. Like, you heard Rough Riders, you heard Mason them, my son next, and then you know you had to sit down. Shout out to Max B. He about to get out soon, right?
Shout out to Max. Yeah.
Your story reminds me of Malcolm X's story. I'm sure you see the similarities. How did your experience in prison push you in the direction to be more socially conscious?
You know, just from just being convicted of a crime that I didn't commit, just seeing how willing and quick, you know, the system was to just say, "We just gonna throw him away." You know, like, damn, they seen I had just got a record deal. Chris came and testified, "Look, he's gonna be good. He has a record deal. We guarantee he's not gonna be in any trouble. I didn't have no prior record, anything, and y'all gave me 7 to 14 years for a crime that nobody got hurt. Y'all can't even prove happened. Somebody was trying to tell you that I never did, and one person that never seemed like." I realized how corrupt this system was. And then when I went to prison, it was so many people with the same story I had.
Right.
So many young kids was coming in there, 19 to 20, was like, "Yo, I ain't even do this, man. Yo, one of my friends in Cozy, who's home now, he was one of my mentors. He was an OG, and I never forget that he told me how he was serving 25 to life for a robbery where a white woman said he took her purse at gunpoint and it was only $1 in her purse.
What?
She picked him out of a lineup. She picked him and said it was him. And he said he never had anything. She said it was only $1 in her purse. She never was hurt. They never recovered the gun, nothing. But this man was found guilty and sentenced to 25 years for $1 from a white woman. And that story, every time I thought about that story, I was like, this is unbelievable. And it was so many young black kids that was coming in. Then when I was seeing the white dudes that was in there, they had 3 or 4 years and they had done all type of bank frauds where they had $2 million and $15 million, and they was in a camp when I got to the medium jail, and it was less. We was outside of the maximum state prison, but it was a lot more white people who had stories, and then they had rape charges and all that, and they had way less time than the black people in there, and I never understood it, and it was like, this is crazy, So when I came home, I said, you know what, I have to talk about this,
right?
And then I have to talk about how we've been tricked into believing there's some badge of honor in prison. We've been taught that. Like, I remember being a young kid in the street and feeling like I wasn't real because I never went to jail.
Right. Wow.
Like, it was like, oh, you ain't the old dudes would come home and with their muscles and they was strong, and they come home and they tell you this jail stories and how they was in the yard, and I was up north, I had gators in my food, I had visits all the time, I was cooking on the grill, I had the phone, all this stuff. They tell you all these stories about, and you just like, damn, he's the man. Everybody looked up to him, so you felt like in order to get that level of respect and clout, you had to go to jail.
Yeah.
And then when I went to jail, I was like, this is the worst place I've ever been in my life. Right. Everybody trying to get out of there, but y'all come home and glorify it to these kids and got them trying to rush to get in here. They throwing rocks at the penitentiary because you making it seem like it's a country club. So when I came home, I was like, nah, I got to dispel these myths and not have these kids thinking that this shit is real. That there's any level of anything for to glorify about being in prison.
No doubt. And you came out and you jumped headfirst into like organizing, social justice, social activism work. People noticed the difference between my son before he went in, when he came out. You ended up linking with Tamika Mallory. Y'all started Until Freedom with Linda Sarsour, Angela Pinto. Can you outline the mission of Until Freedom and tell us why it's important to put marginalized people at the center of the conversation?
Well, Until Freedom came it birthed out of so many different organizations. Originally, I met Tamika Mallory, and she connected me to Carmen Perez, who was the executive director of the Gathering for Justice. So that's where my activism started, with the Gathering for Justice.
Okay.
Just being in that camp and just listening to Mr. B and him giving us the knowledge and talking to us. And then we formed, the birth child of the Gathering for Justice was the Justice League. It was me, Carmen, Tamika, Linda, Angelo. It was so many different other people. We had a plethora of different people. We were all like leaders in our own rank, and it was a immediate response. It was like the Gathering for Justice does so many different things, but we want to be the immediate response. Whenever something happens, we just come in like the Justice League, and we come and we organize. And our first action that we did was around Eric Gardner, and we organized the march that happened for Eric Gardner in New York City, and we just continued to do that all over. And then we marched from New York to D.C. with legislation, and we were a part of the Million Man March, the 20th anniversary of the Million Man March, and we started to do things. And then that's when Tamika and them went and did the Women's March. And then from there, we had all just been a part of just different things. And like she said, after the Women's March, we sat down, I was like, I want us to have our own thing.
Yeah.
I love the Gathering for Justice, I love Justice League, but they come under their own principles, and they have their own ideology, and they have their own things that we have to abide by, that don't necessarily fit what the culture feels like for me.
Yeah.
It wasn't really inviting. To me, I didn't feel like there was a space that represented who I was.
Right.
You know, a lot of these rooms in the movement, they don't really celebrate who I am, what it is that I come. There's no representative that just looks like me at the forefront.
And respectability, politics. And
it's all type of those things. And I was like, I don't want to deal with that. I want to form something with people that I respect, that I love, that I know have my back. I have their back. We have the same ideology. Nobody can come in and tell us what we're going to do with our organization. I want it to be ours. And that's how Until Freedom was formed. And, you know, and we realized that the marginalized people have to be at the center of everything.
Yeah.
They have to be at the center of everything. And we can't allow anybody to stifle our voice because of respectability, politics, and all that. We don't deal with politics. We want to make sure that there's an organization that represents the most marginalized. Those people who don't feel like they're represented. We wanted hip hop to be incorporated. We wanted the regular street person. We want everybody, because I was always asked, yo, I remember going to strip clubs and they'd be like, yo, what you doing in the strip club? I'm like, the same thing you doing.
Same thing you doing.
What are you talking about?
Look, I be at strip
Tipping
clubs and the
strippers.
DJs feel guilty and they play Get By.
Yeah.
No,
and
they
it's-
do.
And it's like, I tell them, I'm like, I got records that would work for
Yeah,
this
for this.
situation.
Get By is
but
not
them
it.
DJs don't know those records.
Exactly.
I've seen strippers half-heartedly dance to Get By. It's not a pretty sight.
Yeah, and like, exactly. And it's like, I don't want that. And
Right.
I remember me and DJ Silver had that conversation. He's like, yo, but you supposed, no, I'm supposed to be doing, I just don't want to see my people dying.
Right.
That's it. You think because I don't want to see my people dying that I don't enjoy this culture, that I don't want to be involved in everything that comes with hip hop? No, I'm just like you. So there was this stigma and I wanted to erase, and that's what Until Freedom is you don't have to have a PhD.
Come
you
as
don't
you
have
are.
to come with a button-up suit and tie. You don't
Word.
got to be a preacher. You can come as you are. Only thing we ask is that you believe that black people and marginalized people of all everything need to be free. That's all we want. We want like-minded people that want to do whatever it is to get our liberation.
No doubt.
You know,
Right.
and that's what Until Freedom is.
Word is born.
A good twerker can twerk to anything. So if they put Goodbye on, if she's a dancer, she gonna twerk that ass to get by.
That's right.
You, Tamika, and I believe Trae the Truth all moved to Louisville, as they say.
Louisville. Okay. You know that's right.
Yeah,
They'll kill you if you don't say it
Yeah,
right.
Louisville.
Louisville.
To support and get close to Breonna Taylor's family. It was Until Freedom that helped make her case national news. Can you take us back to that moment and why you had to make the move?
Well, you know, it was during the pandemic. It was a lot going on. We was in the house for 3 or 4 months. And we had just did one protest in New York City against the police who were they were
For the
treating
mask
the
mandate.
the mask mandate was going crazy. They was beating the shit out of people all over the city. And in white neighborhoods, they was giving a mask. They was handing out masks. Hey, you don't have a mask. But they was walking up to us and beating the shit out of us. So we did a big protest at one police plaza. And directly after that, Benjamin Crump called Tamika, you know, and she called me and was like, yo, Crump, I want you to hear this situation. So we all got on the call and we listened. And I remember Tamika was like, yo, we're going to set up a live conversation. And that's when she got in a live conversation with Tamika Palmer and her lawyer and some of the Black Lives Matter organizers. And then right after that, it was Memorial Day. And we was like, you know, she was an essential worker. So we want to go out there and do something for Memorial Day for Breonna Taylor. And that was directly the time when George Floyd happened. So we drove from that.
Yeah.
We drove from doing memorial for Breonna Taylor to George Floyd. Tamika made the speech at the press conference the next day. We drove like 12 hours straight over there to George Floyd's where it happened at. And soon as that speech happened, it started getting national attention. So Tamika was like, we need to take this
This
national...
is during COVID as
This
well.
is during COVID. And she said, we got to take this national attention and bring it to Breonna Taylor.
Right.
Like, what's going on with George Floyd is definitely serious, and we want to make sure that people understand it. But I'm going to utilize, while people are paying attention to what I'm saying, this black lady needs to get some justice. So she took that same energy and went right back to Louisville right after the George Floyd case and decided to use all of that energy. And we became like family with Breonna Taylor's family.
Yeah.
You know, and when we went out there and met Tamika Palmer, the love and the energy from the family, and we was like, yo, the only way this is going to really work, we got to be here on the ground with these people. We can't be going back. It's COVID. Like, And we say, you know what? We just gonna move out down here. We're gonna get us an Airbnb, and we're gonna stay down here until we actually get something to happen. And that's what we did. We moved out there, and we stayed there for about almost 4 months. And it was a lot, man. We protest every day. We had drones following us. We had
local militias and all that
we
shit,
got
right?
arrested. It was we had the militia people standing outside of places we had protesting with guns. Follow. It was really a lot.
Did y'all have anybody during this time that y'all stayed in the house document everything?
Actually, somebody from Louisville, two of the photographers and cameramen, they followed us around. They got a lot, not everything, but they got a lot of different things from it.
Can you describe? You talked about y'all drove back from Minneapolis, but Minneapolis, from where I was looking insane. With the militarization of the police, we now finding out that the white dude who's breaking the windows was part of white supremacist groups. You had the infiltration of white anarchists and radicals and white supremacists coming in. Tamika's speech, how Target responded to that. Can you just describe sort of what was going on the ground?
Well, the ground was crazy. I remember the first night we was there, and there was an auto zone. It was an auto zone it was a wall that we hid by because the police station was shooting rubber bullets and pepper spray off the roof, and this little auto zone was the thing that protected us. So I remember the first night, this was our little spot. The next day we came back, it was burnt down. It was gone. Literally, it was completely gone. And I remember watching the police throw rubber bullets and tear gas, and people picking up the tear gas and throwing it back. And I remember the first time the tear gas went in my eyes, and we had to throw milk in my eyes, and I was on the ground, and we was running. I didn't know where people was. I had to grab Linda and Tamika, trying to figure out where they was. People was coughing, and we running down blocks, and they chasing us. It was literally like a war zone. And then after the people had went and commandeered the stores, they came out, they utilized it as supplies to give to people. It wasn't like people was taking most of this. They had all the supplies. They had goggles, they had food.
That's
if you
important because people still look at that as looting.
They had whole tables, and you walk by and you say, what do you need? I'm hungry. Boom. Say, here, take some goggles for your eyes, take some milk, take some water, take all of the necessary things that you're gonna need. They give you something to protect you just in case they shoot at you. It was really like everybody was taking care of each other. I never seen people more unified than in that moment, even though there was so much chaos, but there was a level of unification that I had never seen before in my life.
I saw that in Ferguson, and I know that they learned a lot of that from working with Palestinian activists, and then it became even more organized by the time we got to George Floyd and Breonna Taylor. Thank you for the work that y'all do. Thank you for going out there and representing. Until Freedom is something that I knew Until Freedom was real, and my family members started asking me about it. Like, who, y'all heard of Tamika Mallory? Y'all know that my son is doing? I'm like, okay, they touching the people who don't often pay attention. And you do that with your music. Gangsta But Woke as Fuck is a great album. Shout out to Chia Lee. That's our brother.
That's my guy.
He's on that album. Only the Real Can Relate is you sample Cardi B, who also represents the Bronx. Recently, this year, you just dropped this album with Trae the Truth, and I know that y'all linked up around this activist work. Trae the Truth story is well documented, and he's such an important person in our communities.
He's a hero.
He's a real live superhero.
Real live. Ain't no
Absolutely. I want to talk about the song Time for Change off the new Trayvon, because the name of the album is If You're Scared, Stay Aside. It's a collaboration with you and Trae the Truth. There's a song called Time for Change, which features Tamika's speech that we just spoke about, Styles P, Bun B, Inc., Anthony Hamilton, Conway, T.I., Crazy Bone, and E40. They're not featured on this song. Why is it that they're not listed?
Well, I don't know. That's something that I guess Trae decided not to do, because Trae did a lot of the executive work on the album, right? So me and Trae, we recorded that album in 2 days, literally in 2 days. He flew his engineer to Louisville, and we were staying in the Airbnb together, and he set up in the living room, and he just gave me beats. And we would literally come from the protest, come from a march, and then go right to the studio.
Sounds like it.
Like literally, like it was really that energy. Like he'll send me, I'll be at the march. Sometimes I'll be like, I gotta go do something. He'll send me 3 or 4 beats. And I get back, he done already wrote 4 songs already. I'm like, all right, I got to catch up. So in 3 or 4 hours, I'm sitting there writing my verse, and we literally recorded this whole album in 2 days.
Wow.
Do you feel like conscious posse cuts like that don't get enough love? Because I didn't hear about this record.
And it's crazy. The video, the cartoon of the video,
Family Guy style.
It's so dope. Like it's no way. I just think music today, the way that it is marketed and promoted, and what they're looking for in music is just so different, right? And it's not like the music is not dope. Because every time somebody hears that song, they have the same response. Like, oh, this song is dope. I never heard. Oh, it has the same response. People actually love the song. I just think that, you know, we've removed from music that touches you.
Yeah.
You know, it's about a vibe. It's about a move. It's about something. It's not really music that touches. Unless you are someone who is already all the way established, and even then, it's hard to just make that type of music. You know, but that song is definitely one of my favorite songs.
No doubt.
Take us through organizing the Kings Stop Killing Kings March and the importance of holding your own people accountable without victim blaming.
For me, the first King Stop Killing Kings was pretty much, you know, in reference to what happened to Nipsey Hussle. You know, it was right after Nipsey passed away, and I came to a lot of, and I wanted to do a big march in DC with everybody, you know, but it was just so many different people. We had got on a text chain with everybody, a lot of different artists and everything, and then everybody just was doing different things where they were from. So I was like, you know, and I thought about how this black man lost his life by another black man, and this was one of our icons. This was somebody that, you know, I don't know if a lot of people realize, but I realized who Nip was before.
Yes.
He died.
You know what I'm saying? He was somebody that I looked up to. He was a lot of artists that I don't, but I just respected the way he carried himself as a man, the way he spoke all the time, you know, the way his mind was. You know, we had just met. We had did a concert in LA probably a few months before that for this organization called Time's Done, where they were trying to expunge records of formerly incarcerated people so they could just eliminate the stigmas and all of the things that come with them not being able to get jobs. And he was the headline, and I was on the card with him, and we had build, man. He was talking about how he loved what I was doing, and we was gonna connect, and we were supposed to do music together. So right when this happened, you know, it really touched me. It was like, damn, they took Nip.
Yeah.
Like, damn, somebody from his hood, the same hood that he did everything to rebuild, like they did this to Nip. So, you know, I was like, we gotta do something. And I remember calling for the King Stop Killing Kings March, and I did it in the Bronx, and the response and all the people that came out was just phenomenal.
Yeah, man. They always say that we're not accountable to ourselves, but it's like Malcolm said, those conversations are, you know, like the dirty laundry conversations. Like, we have to be accountable to ourselves, but we have to show solidarity in the general society. And I think you've shown a great example of that. I want to go back to the art for a second, the Not For Sale album. Great album. I encourage people to get it. A song, one of my favorite songs off that album is the song Rain. And I felt seen and heard when I heard this song. Because you say, you know, they made hot nigga mainstream, but tell a conscious nigga that's hot that he can't stream. Shout out to Bobby Shmurda, that whole crew. I love this lyric because it challenges the industry, and it also challenges consumers to be more conscious in what we consume. What's it like being perceived as being both street and conscious?
It's a duality that not a lot of people understand. I realized what Pac went through, right? You know, they say that you contradicting, you're a hypocrite, but you don't feel one way all the time, right? Like, I can say to myself, I'm anti, because I tell people all the time, I'm anti-violent. I'm not non-violent.
Right.
You know, and I'm against.
It's the same as like being
But
anti-racist as opposed to non-racist.
Exactly.
What's that even mean?
And for me, I'm against it. Anti is against. That doesn't mean that I won't engage to protect myself. It doesn't mean that you could disrespect me and do what you want to do to me. So the duality of being gangster and woke understands, like, you're my brother as long as you're my brother. But when you become my enemy and I feel like you're trying to harm me, then we on a different spectrum. You know, so the duality of what it is that I say, that being gangster and woke and conscious, it confuses a lot of people, right? So when you come and you tell people, you know, you again, oh, I can't mess with no rap. And they go, oh, but you upholding the street code. No, I don't want to deal with a man of no integrity.
That's right.
That's what it is. It has nothing to do with street code. I I have held consequences for actions that I've done. I know what that looks like. I had everything to gain by not being holding down that. And I still said to myself, I'm going to do whatever it is that I have to do as a man. I'm going to hold this down and I'm going to deal with the consequences. I know what that looks like. So when somebody's not willing to do that, it's cool for you. You can deal with that. But you can't tell me that my criteria is for me are not right.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? So there's always those things that people come with. I love hip hop music. I love gangster rap. So there's gangster rap that I like. I understand that there's an expression itself. A lot of these young rappers, they want me to crucify, and I'm like, you've never been these young rappers.
Yeah.
I remember being 17 and 18, and that was my life. When I listened to NBA Youngboy and I listened to Lil Baby, I know where the next stage, if they properly mold it, is.
Yeah, imagine what Tupac and Biggie would have been like in their 40s.
Exactly. I understand what the evolution process looked like. So you want me to condemn these kids because that's their reality. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to utilize that energy the way that they can reach out. Minister says it all the time. I don't want you to be me.
Right.
I want you to do exactly what it is you do. And as you evolve, tell all those people that listen to you the right thing.
No doubt.
You don't have to be me. Like if you be me, then I can't really use you because I'm already me. Okay. You know what I'm saying? All of us are different and we all have a different purpose. So I understand what hip hop is for. When you look at what they celebrating in hip hop, you look at right now, the Chicago kids only get signed when they got beef with somebody.
That's right.
That's the criteria to get signed. You got to have beef. You got to shoot somebody. You got to do something, make a video about it, make a song about it, and then you get a record deal. Yeah. So whose fault is that? It ain't these kids. Exactly. It's the people who's promoting it. It's people who's celebrating it. So you mad at somebody that's saying, this is the only way I'm going to get out the hood? That's what I need to do? That's why my activism comes from a different space. It doesn't come from a space of me being here. Yeah. I know what it like to be there, so I'm having a conversation with you right there. I'm going to help you evolve. I'm not telling you can't be me right now because you haven't been through what I went through.
No doubt.
I can't judge you based on what I already know. I'm judging you based on what I thought at that exact same age and saying I'll get what you're going through.
No doubt.
And if you listen to me, then you won't make the same mistakes I made. And that's the guidance that we need to give, and that's the the grace that we need to give these kids, and that's the grace that we need to give ourselves as individuals. I have a problem with somebody that's 30 and 40 that knows the consequences, knows what he's doing, that's misleading somebody on purpose. Now that's the issue I have with those artists. When you intentionally are misleading these kids for your own benefit, because you already know the consequences, so you giving them a gun, but you ain't gonna shoot nobody. You gonna say, here, go shoot them, because you're not going to jail. You know what goes with it. And you're gonna be over there laughing and making and benefiting off it. Those the people that I target.
Right. No. Speaking of kids, I actually just ordered this off of Amazon. You have your children's book, I Know My Rights. What made you want to reach to a younger generation, and how is the feedback from that project?
Oh man, shout out to the author, the co-author with me, the person who published the book, Hedrick McBride. He literally sparked the idea. He hit me up and was like, yo, I got an idea for you. I want you to do the Constitution. I'm like, what are you talking about? I want you to write a book for kids about the Constitution. And I'm like,
it's a good idea.
And I was like, damn. He said, I think your platform, what you speak for, I think it'll really resonate with these kids. And I was like, wow. And it was immediate, and I wrote the book in like a week. I sat down, I was like, okay, I had an idea. This
could be a series.
A week?
In a week, literally wrote the book in a week. I'm working on the next book. It's called Raising Kings, and it's 13 principles of manhood. Yes. It's like a rite of passage book. And because I believe that a lot of these kids have been misled about what manhood looks like. What real men are. So I have 13 principles. But that book has been doing phenomenal. Like still to this day, we sell thousands of books weekly. People hit me up and say how the whole family loves the book. Like, yo, me and my whole family. I brought it for my son, and then next thing you know, I didn't even know half of the stuff that was in it. So it's really got dope feedback.
No doubt. And I got the bookstore online, Akira Books. We used to have it in the brick and mortar, but we got it online, so I need to get the copies.
Yes.
You shouldn't have to go to Amazon.
I shouldn't be able to go to your store.
You're right.
I will not go to Amazon to buy any more books.
It's all good. It's all good. I want to thank you for doing this show.
Thank you.
I know
having
you're on
me,
your way
man.
to Dallas to show solidarity with the Haitian migrants. Before we get out of here, I want to thank you for what I saw you say about rape culture when you were on the steps protesting the appointment of Kavanaugh. My brother is a constitutional lawyer by profession, and so he was the person who seen the lawyer who was like giving Harris, she wasn't vice president then, but giving her the talking points like say this, say that. That was my younger brother, Jamal, who was also on this show. So I'm glad that I had Jamal in there and I had my son outside. You know what I'm saying? I felt represented by that. And you, as a person who is a black man, you took responsibility for men's participation in rape culture, and you called to other men to speak out against rape culture, and that was very important. Street Politicians is the podcast with you and Tamika. Tell us about that, and just tell us what's next for my son.
Oh man, Street Politicians are baby, man. I've been trying to get Tamika to do this podcast for like 4 years. Like literally, we were supposed to be like Joe Budden's podcast was done in the studio that ours was because the guy built the podcast room for me, and Tamika never showed up. Okay. So Joe Budden
y'all
just
birthed Joe Budden. Y'all
Pretty
owe
much.
Rory a mouse of money.
Yeah, pretty much. I was like, yo. Next thing I know, my man, he's like, yo, I got the whole thing for you. Next thing I know, Joe was in there doing the podcast because we never showed up to do it. So, shout out to my man Ferrari. He had his studio up there, and I love it. Street Politicians, we growing every day. Shout out to the Black Effect Network, Charlemagne, for giving us, the opportunity to do that, man. And we on our second season. We about to renew our thing for our second season. And I'm just looking forward to grow. We're learning. You know what I'm saying? Hopefully we be like this, dope like this.
No doubt.
We love the People's Party is a dope podcast. So
Thank you. We in this together, bro.
Yeah, man. It's a different, we want to just bring what it is that we bring to activism, what we bring to the streets, how we connect both of those things. We just try to make our podcast have that same feel.
No doubt. Well, I appreciate you coming. Next time you come, I know you have to get on the plane.
Yes.
Next time you come, I'm going to only ask you about rap shit.
Okay.
I had to get the activism shit out
I'm
first.
not,
That's
man.
more important.
Listen, it's dope, man.
No doubt.
I appreciate it.
I appreciate you. My son is on the People's Party. Good work.